Hi, I'm Laura.
And I'm Keisha, and welcome to the Pattern Queen special Stitch with Us, number 8. Today is February the 28th, so last day of February, and this is a channel about cross stitch.
And silliness and ramblings and friendship for sure.
For sure.
And lots of shenanigans.
Yeah, who knows what we're going to get into half the time.
Well, we do today because we're going to get into long dog starts.
We are.
So I'm starting Life After Death.
And I am starting Death by Cross Stitch.
Woohoo! So they're similar but different.
Yes.
Just like
Just
us.
like
Oh.
So what materials are you using, Laura?
I don't have the name of this linen anywhere, but it's this really pretty periwinkle color.
Ooh.
And I have a hank of silk floss. I have 2 hanks of silk floss from Silks for You, and they just have numbers. I don't remember what number this is. Maybe I'll look it up and tell you guys later. I came so prepared to tell you things,
That's
but
okay.
I have loads and loads of glorious silk.
Guys, we've been talking about starting these for over half a year, and we're just excited to get into them. Usually we start these videos sometime between 10 and 11, and I'm like, 10 o'clock?
And it helps that your mom is there too, right?
Right. James's nanny is here, so she is watching him while I come in here. So very excited.
Okay,
go
ahead.
Okay, I am using 36 count Agave linen from Zweigart. So it's this really pretty green color. And I'm using, this is DMC 3809. So
it is an unlikely combination. That's what I would say. When I looked at it, I'm like, really? That's the color you want to go on that? So, but I think it's going to look really pretty with it.
Yeah, I'm excited. And so I mentioned this in our last regular video, that basically this is one of the colors that I'm using in a model that I'm stitching for Michelle Bendy. And I just love this color. I fell in love with it. And whenever I saw this green, whenever you picked it out last weekend, I was like, yep, that's the color I'm going to be using. So we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to look really good.
I liked it. And it's just one of their standard colors. It's not over dyed. It's so pretty though.
Right. So, and this particular piece, there's not a whole lot of the fabric that shows through. So I didn't want to get something that was super over dyed because I thought you'd lose all of that. So I'm just going simple, but I'm really excited to see how it all ends up. Of course, it's going to take approximately 15 years for me to finish this, but.
Okay, and so our goal is to stitch about 10,000 stitches this year, which would now make us stitch 1,000 stitches a month. Right. And that's not terrible. We can do that. We know we pace ourselves. Right. Speaking of stitches, I have had kind of a goal the last few weeks to see if I can get to a certain point. And it took me until about 3 o'clock in the morning, but I made it to over 5,000 stitches for this last week.
Wow, that's amazing. I had a little bit of a struggle week. I stitched every day, but James is cutting teeth right now, which means he's just a fussy boy, and we have a runny nose all the time, and it's so that's kind of, I'm caring for my boy, so that kind of takes away some of the stitching time, which is fine. I'd rather spend time with kids. That's my favorite thing. So
you told me how many stitches you put in yesterday, and that was a good day.
Yeah, well, and because I had my my mom here. So that was nice. So I try to average about 200 stitches a day, and I always look at averages. So that would be about 1,400 stitches a week. And only because I did a whole lot of stitches last Sunday and I did a whole lot of stitches yesterday, I actually broke the 200 stitches a day goal. So I ended up with a little over 1,900 stitches last week.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, I've really been trying to get up a little bit before James and just have a little bit of time where I sit with a cup of coffee, and usually I get like maybe 50 stitches in if I'm lucky. But it's kind of nice to sit and get that done. And then, usually I can get 100 to 200 stitches in at nighttime, depending on how James is. Some nights I don't get it. Like, let's see, one night I can tell you that probably Thursday night was a particularly difficult night for me because I got 87 stitches in. And I can tell you that 29 stitches of those were in the morning before I went to work. And 28 stitches of those were while I was at work. I got 30 stitches in at home.
It must be a Thursday thing because that was my struggle day.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I needed to average a little over 700 stitches a day to make it. And on Thursday, I only stitched 191 stitches.
Oh, really?
And that's, yeah, I did some at work, not very many. I did 54 at work. No, I'm looking at the wrong day. Mine was Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday was my struggle day. So, but it's, like you said, it's about pushing those averages. I stitched almost 1,200 stitches. We had a stitching event. Oh, our friend
Yes.
Athena is making t-shirts, and yesterday we had our Jane Austen event, Spill the Tea event. I can't get a hold. So I have on my obstinate headstrong girl shirt, which I just really love. And Athena's group is Stitching Goddess Designs. So if you would like some cool cross stitch shirts, you can ask to join her Facebook group. And she has lots of colors and lots of colors of both shirts and the and what goes on them. So you can really customize your shirt. She has some fun sayings.
We're being interrupted by coffee.
Oh,
Thank you, Coffee
awesome.
Fairy. What kind of coffee is this?
It's a salted caramel cold brew.
Oh, salted caramel cold brew, for those
Ooh.
of you wondering. Thank you, Coffee Fairy. I love you. That was my husband, guys. He came bearing gifts, so he was allowed in.
There you go. But Athena has just been doing some really cool shirts, so definitely go check her out.
And again, Athena is a nice person, and she's very professional and on top of things. So a good person to order from.
Right. And
yet,
Stitching Goddess Designs is also the name of her floss tube.
And yes, we say that because we're her friends, but also it's true.
Yes. Okay, I have 2 little rows of 5 so far.
Nice. I have, okay, so we were talking about this before we started recording, but we're both very, very excited to start these. And we're like, we're both just going to have lines. So I'm currently working on a line of 95 stitches across. So I might just get that line done today.
Are you, how are you counting them? Are you using a trick? Are you marking?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So I'm actually using a trick that I learned from you. So whenever you do long rows, I don't know if everyone knows this trick. I didn't know it until I was told, but you cross your 10th stitch. That way you can keep count of where you're at. And I think that's a really great tip.
Because you're using a DMC.
Yeah. So I go all the way down in half stitches and then come back. So I just cross where my 10th stitch is so that I can easily count. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm trying to count 95, I'll count it differently 3 times.
Oh, and I will make myself count it over and over and over. And over.
Right. Well, and I still, even whenever I'm using this trick, I like kind of count whenever I go back.
I
And I
count,
recount the 10.
yes, I
Every,
count the 10 every time. So,
but yeah, so that's my method for doing these lines. I'm actually using Pattern Keeper for this, and this is my first time using Pattern Keeper. I got a Samsung tablet for Christmas that I was just going to use for cross stitching, but none of the patterns that I've worked on so far this year have been compatible with Pattern Keeper, but I was able to get it so that this one is.
yay!
So I'm using that, which is kind of nice. Like it's it's a much bigger, because it's a tablet, it's a much bigger, I'm gonna do it like this so you can't see. Ha ha ha. It's a much bigger screen than my phone. So that's kind of nice. So I'm just gonna kind of mark off with this and use it, let it keep count for me.
I've always been amazed that you can stitch from your phone, because I just think that's such a small space.
Oh, see, I always blow things up on my phone too, but I'm the kind of person who even takes pictures of patterns, like paper patterns, and then I can kind of zoom in on things.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with a baby who wants to put everything in his mouth right now,
Oh,
the safest way to stitch, because you don't want him to get paper in his mouth.
no.
Your pattern.
I think that's a good trick. People have been talking about how some patterns are really hard to see, and I always think you can snapshot a picture of any pattern, just
Right.
one little section, whatever section you're on.
Right.
I clean up my photos regularly because I have a lot on my phone, but I will have to go back and clear out all the little snapshots that I've taken to get up close on a photo,
Right.
on a
Well,
pattern.
and I will do that too. I don't like marking up a paper pattern. I don't know why. I don't really stitch things twice, but if I want to pass it on to someone or something
Right.
like that. And sometimes you're kind of in tricky sections where you I mean, there are some patterns that I do where I'm like, I need to be able to mark these off because the lines are maybe too similar or something like that. And so I go in, and you can use tools either in the photos, or I have an iPhone, so I usually save things into iBooks, and then you can mark up your pages. So then I use that to mark up on more difficult sections. I've been doing that with cozy feet that I've been working on, because there's a lot of just differently placed stitches, and I want to make sure that I get all of them in. So it helps with count too. Sometimes if I'm not counting as I'm going, to highlight them a different color and then count them up afterwards.
Awesome. Okay, this one little stitch is really fighting with me.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when they get like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
it's
always
just the border. It's not supposed to be a problem, right? I do think, though, one of the pieces that I had kind of let languish was one that I was having a little more trouble following the pattern because it was printed pretty tiny.
Mm-hmm.
And, when my brain finally said, oh, hey, that butterfly, you could just take a picture of that butterfly and then stitch it.
Mm-hmm.
That made all the difference.
Right.
So, and probably I thought that because I was stitching with you by that point at Panera and watching you pull out your phone and stitch from your phone every week. Oh, yeah, you can look at that thing.
Well, and used to my old job, I traveled for work all the time, and I was always worried about losing a pattern, because that's happened to me
Mhm.
before. And so having it on my phone, you know, hopefully I don't lose my phone. If I lose my phone, I have a whole other set of issues. But you know, it just made it easier to kind of keep track of things. And so I got used to stitching that way from my device. And so I mean, that's really my preference anymore, is to stitch from my device. So, but I'm excited about this tablet because it's like I said, it's a little bit of a bigger screen. I'm excited to get into Pattern Keeper. I'm going to use it. I have a couple of my Hades loaded into it so that I can use it for that. But of course, I mean, I have not worked on any Hades yet this year. I have the one that I'm doing for James, so I need to get that out. There's also one that I was working on that I've made quite a bit of progress on that I need to pull out again too. It's not one of my goals for the year, but I've really been thinking about it. And oh, I can't remember who said it. We had someone who commented on our last video that was like, stitch a pig, Sal, and I'm like, yes, and it's a
Oh,
hanging
yes.
pig.
It's Amy. Was it Sprinklestein?
Maybe. I'm trying to remember.
I know,
I just,
that's me too.
yeah.
And I looked up that pattern again. I don't know if we showed you guys what that one looked like. Oh, it's so cute.
Oh yeah, the pigs having tea. Oh, so good. I really just want to buy all the Madame Chantilly things. It's We should stitch that together because it has a bunny and a pig.
I know, that's why we thought it would be so good, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking we just need to order that in PDF and have it and find some pretty springy fabric and get started, right?
Sounds good to me.
Just start
Of
all the
course, you know,
things.
I'm really the easiest person in the world to talk into doing a sale.
Okay, so typically I would start new things on the 21st of every month this year.
Mm-hmm.
I did not start anything.
Oh, you didn't?
No. And I did not I'm sorry, big old frog. I did not start anything on the 21st of January either.
Huh.
I decided in January that I had had plenty of starts because I started several things right at the beginning of the year. And so I didn't do it. And then this month, um, I was going to pre-start this one with my one little stitch and also pre-start my Jane Austen piece from Heartstring Samplery for
Mm-hmm.
yesterday's event, and I did not pre-start it. So I started it yesterday. So 2 days, 2 starts here,
Ah,
but not on the 21st.
right.
Oh, and here's the other fun thing from this week. I love that we're just rambling like madly here.
Hey,
We
you know what? I always have questions prepared, but they know us by now. We don't need any prompts. We
um
could talk for a couple of hours with nothing to
we
talk
really
about.
could. This week had the 25th in it, and
Mhm.
I want to stitch on Christmas pieces on the 25th. And I forgot
Right.
to do that. Well, no, I stitched on a Christmas piece on January 25th.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry, you guys. Um, but I wanted to stitch on my Quaker Christmas from Bygone Stitches because my friend Judy, hi Judy,
Judy.
is stitching along with me. We're both trying to help each other get some more stitches on that one.
Mhm.
It was already a whip for both of us. So at about 10 o'clock at night on the 25th this week, I realized I had not pulled that out. And I went
Ah,
racing around the house to find the project bag and get it out and get it started.
mhm.
And I did put in a lot of stitches. So I was supposed to stitch 2 days. So I stitched on the 26th also I ended up on Thursday, the 25th, with about, I'm trying to do quick math here, with about 550 stitches in on it.
Oh, wow.
And then on Friday, I ended up with just over 600 stitches in on it.
Wow.
So I got a lot of stitches in on it this month.
Yeah.
It's a single color thing.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say that. It has 3 colors. The majority of it is green, and it has tiny touches of red and gold in it.
Okay.
And I did stitch with all 3 colors just because of where I was in the pattern, but
Right.
most of it was green. So there's not a lot of changing colors.
Right. That really makes the difference too.
It really does. I love that.
Mm-hmm. It's one of
And
the things I'm excited about this piece for is that it's just, it's going to be pretty relaxing.
right, you just pull it out and go.
Mm-hmm.
My last night I worked on my piece that our LNS owner designed. It's Rosie and Me. And that pattern is Count Your Friends. And I ended up, it's all done in one color. I'm actually stitching it in a floss color called Argyle Socks. And I really like that. It's on kind of a gray fabric. So I must like these grayish type fabrics. This
Yeah.
is, I mean, this is periwinkle, but it's definitely got that gray feel. And
Right.
then some purples on them. Look, my little square already changes colors.
Oh, wow. That's so good.
And I was holding it sideways and upside down and everything else for you just then. So
Line update.
look at you go.
No color change. I'd be concerned if it did change colors. I got a bad skein of DMC here.
It is going to play off that so pretty.
Yeah, maybe you like grays because purples look good with them.
It could be. That Argyle Socks is a beautiful color.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to get into some questions?
Sure.
So, in honor of the Lost in Austen event that you had yesterday, we are answering questions about book habits.
Ooh, my book habits have been terrible lately.
Well, first off, not a question that I found, but what is your favorite Jane Austen novel?
Oh my gosh. You know what?
What's your favorite one right now? I
Yes,
guess.
I think that's probably the key. I most recently watched Sense and Sensibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read all of the core novels. But I most recently watched Sense and Sensibility. So of course, Eleanor and Marianne are my favorites right now.
Right.
But regularly, I love Emma. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love there's something about every single one of them that I really truly enjoy. I think Pride and Prejudice is the most popular. It's maybe it's kind of a toss up between it and Emma as to which for me is the easiest one to read. Have you read the Austen novels?
I haven't read that many of them. I mean, my favorite is Pride and Prejudice because that's the one I've read the most often. Like everything else is just kind of like a passing knowledge. My best friend is a huge Jane Austen head. Loves it, loves it, loves it. And so she's the one we had a cultural exchange. She told me that I had to read a Jane Austen novel, and she picked Pride and Prejudice because it's her favorite. And I said, well, you're from Missouri and you've never read anything by Mark Twain, so you're reading Tom Sawyer. So Pride and Prejudice is definitely the one that I'm the most familiar with. And, my friend is like, she is definitely a Lizzie Bennet. Completely. And we've decided that I'm probably a Jane. So
You're a Jane, huh?
But on my bad days, I might be a Mary.
Oh my gosh. I don't think anyone should ever be a Mary. Yeah. But we all are. I think we're all aspects of all of the characters. So,
I
go ahead.
I really enjoy that novel just for like the family dynamic and relationships in it, like the female relationships. I find them more interesting almost than like the romantic relationships that are happening.
There is quite a bit going on in there, and
Yes.
There's so much about it that you just really can relate to. And it's too bad that we didn't know each other when Katie and I decided to host an Austen read along on Goodreads.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's one that, I need to read more Jane Austen for sure.
Well, it was fun because we ended up with a nice little group, and we assigned a book. I think we did every other month.
Mm-hmm.
And there was good discussion going on, and hey, what part are you at, what chapter are you on? It was good, and we learned, we had a lot of different perspectives in the group.
Right.
And that's always interesting to me, to get to hear just different perspectives on what we're all reading that's in common.
Right. Oh man, I wish and probably like I have no excuse to not be part of a book club because there are so many things online, but I kind of wish I was just part of a book club that would get together. At my the community college that I went to, and they had a book club every other month, and they'd pick different, like way different books from each other each time. And I had to go, it was a requirement for one of my classes that you had to go to one of those meetings. And so I read the book, and I went, and they had made food that kind of went with the book, and we discussed the book, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go to this every time now. But I found out about it too late going there, so I really only got to do that for a semester. And then I found out that the library branch in the city that I work for, which is right across the street from City Hall, that they have a book club, but it's during my work hours, so I wouldn't be able to go.
Too bad, right?
Yeah, because that would have been fun. You can tell that we're doing a lot of counting.
Yes. Getting this set, this is such a huge piece. I do not want to be off.
Right. You don't want to start off in a bad way. Luckily for me, I'm just doing a straight line. And the straight line goes all the way around the piece. So if I mess up on the straight line, I can fix it in the next page. Because there's not a whole lot you can do to be off on it.
Come on.
Okay. The first question is, when you are reading, do you have a certain place in your home where you like to read? Like, do you have a book spot?
I most often read as I'm going to bed. So generally, my book spot is me curled on my side in bed with my Kindle.
Mm-hmm. See, that is, oh, go ahead.
I use it for wind down time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been, especially lately, I will suddenly wake up and find that I'm still holding my Kindle and it's completely black.
Yeah, that's me with my phone. I'm also kind of the same way. Not as much anymore, but I used to read in bed a lot before I went to bed. Now I'm like, is the kid asleep? Okay, I'm going to sleep immediately.
Or I'm going back to the living room to put in 500 stitches. Yeah.
Right. So since I have the kid and limited free time, most of my reading has been through audiobooks lately, which has been great. I've been whenever I get up in the morning and make my coffee and put in my couple of stitches, I will listen to a chapter or two of an audiobook. So my current reading spot is my stitching spot, which is a little fainting couch in the living room, which is also just the couch that I sit on all the time anyway. That's mine and James's couch. All of our things are there. So got like a baby blanket, a stuffed Clifford toy, and then my stitching things. Just in case I need to snuggle something while I'm sitting there.
There you go.
Do you do many audiobooks, or are you usually like a physical reader?
I used to do an audiobook on my way to and from school, and I got out of the habit because Katie and I were writing together.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to get some more audiobooks and do, start doing that again.
Right.
It was great because it helps me relax, which I know that sounds funny when I'm driving, but it keeps me from stressing out over the driving. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
Right. Are you currently reading anything good?
I just finished reading the Shadow and Bone trilogy from Leigh Bardugo. It's the Grisha verse. I know I just said a bunch of crazy words, right? So it's a really good series. It was obviously 3 books. Katie had them all on Kindle, and because we have family sharing, I could read those. And I really, really enjoyed them. I had read part of the first one when I was still working at middle school. I think it showed up on our reading list one year. And for whatever reason, I had only read about a third of the first book. And so Katie had read them all and was, always talking about, oh, they're so good, da 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 da. And I'm like, I don't remember it being that good. And I was thinking that I had read the whole first book and I had only read about a third of it. So that's why it wasn't such a great book.
Right.
I had to read more than just the first third of the book. And I would like to, I've stopped. I finished it last weekend. I haven't started anything new. And I was thinking maybe I would switch to a different author and read something else, but there are more books in the same universe with that, so I might just go back and read. I might go back and start on the next book. How about you?
I just finished, and I am never on the cutting edge of books, but somehow I found myself there. I just finished reading The Project, well, listening to. It was really good. I got it from Audible, the audiobook version. I finished The Project by Courtney Summer, and that just came out on the 2nd. And she is the author of the book Sadie, which came out a couple years ago, which is also a really good audiobook. Sadie is about a girl who is looking for her sister's killer. And it is done half from the point of view of Sadie and half from the point of view of a person who's making a podcast about what happened.
Oh.
So and actually I listened to that on Katie's recommendation. So Katie Landis, it's always good to get yourself a friend who knows about books, because they'll give you some good.
And she reads quite a bit of different styles of books, and so she kind of knows what I like to read, and she will give me recommendations based on me, on what I like to read. So
well, and Sadie was one that she recommended to me like the first time that we hung out together at a Barnes and Noble. We were just walking by and she was like, "Oh yeah, you should really read that book, but I'd listen to it as an audiobook because it's pretty cool that way." Like, okay. And I did, and it was great. So the one that I just listened to by Courtney Summer, The Project, is about a woman whose sister was in a cult. And so she's kind of like trying to investigate that. And you get two different perspectives there. You get both sisters. So it's a good one. I really enjoyed it. And then, so I finished that a couple weeks ago, or not a couple weeks ago, like a week ago. And I started, gotta see who the author is because I forget. I started The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which I had heard about online, and it's a really interesting one. It's about this woman. Her name is Evelyn Hugo, like the title would imply. And she's like an old Hollywood starlet, like think maybe like a Joan Rivers type, who's had 7 husbands. And she contacts this woman to basically write her memoir. And the big question about Evelyn Hugo is, with 7 husbands, who was Evelyn Hugo's true love? Like, who was your greatest love? And so the book kind of goes through and explores that. And then you get Evelyn Hugo's story, but you also get the story of the woman who is writing the memoir, who is just a journalist, like a lower level journalist for this magazine. She has no idea. She was asked for by name by Evelyn Hugo, and she doesn't know why. And I still don't know why. I'm only halfway through the book, but I'm listening to it, and it's also really good. It's a good audiobook, so it's well read.
Awesome.
I'm really enjoying it.
I used to read way more than I do now, but when we started Love You More and I was sewing so much, something had to go, and it was either my reading or my stitching, and it of course was not going to be my stitching. But I'm happy to be back reading a little more, even if it is just a few minutes a day.
Right. Well, and that's kind of a little bit what happened to me. I used to read a lot more than I am right now. I didn't read a lot of books, but I read a lot. I'm a slow reader. But I feel like that's just kind of me with anything. All of my hobbies, I just take some time to do it. I don't try to rush through anything. But
I would read about 3 books at a time, because I would have an audiobook going, and I would have a book that I read at school. And so I felt like, it needed to be school appropriate. And I was at a middle school, so I read the Truman Award books so that I would be reading something that the students at the school were also reading. And then I had whatever book I wanted to read at home. So yes, I would keep 3 sets of stories, 3 storylines going at one time.
Right. Well, and I would do like an audiobook, and then I'd have a physical book that I'd read, or like a Kindle on my Kindle usually. or the Kindle app on my phone, which is nice. But I feel like some people, and I know a lot of people who are just one book at a time people. I'm like, if you can watch multiple TV shows and keep those storylines straight, you could probably read multiple books.
Right.
But I know that some people just aren't that way. And some people, and I mean, I used to be this way whenever I was younger. I would sit down with a book and I would just like a couple days it was done. So I didn't really have time to read another book, you know. So
I know we were right at the beginning when I was at the middle school. It was right at the beginning of tablets becoming a popular thing.
mhm.
And I really applauded them because sixth graders read, they have a unit every year where they read a classic novel.
Mhm.
And that's difficult for kids just because the language is so different.
Right.
And so our sixth grade teachers got the idea to write a grant to get some different e-readers. And they tried out 3 different kinds, and they did kind of a lottery style in their class where they just drew and, you read on this kind, you read on this kind, and you read on this kind. But the kids did not have to have a physical book, which that could pose some problems to even try to find physical copies of the books.
Right.
And they got to read on tablets, which was totally cool for them.
Yeah.
So I thought that was great. And I really applauded them for being creative enough to say, hey, we're going to do this unit and we're going to make it really cool for the kids.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then
and
the school went to devices for every kid. And so now every kid would have that ability anyway.
see, I really like the convenience of a tablet or an e-reader. I think it's great. I mean, it's a good way to store all of your books. You don't have to carry all of this stuff around with you. And like, it's nice to have something that's backlit too, so that you can have your light off and still read in bed. But I still like reading a physical book.
There's just something
Sometimes.
about it, isn't there?
Well, and I can't click out of the book and look at Facebook or Instagram, you know. So it's kind of less distractions. But my husband is definitely still like a physical books. Almost everything he buys is a physical copy of something. He has a Kindle. We both have Kindles. But he really likes having a physical book. But he also likes having a physical book because, and you can't see them because they're over to the side, but he likes having the books to display also.
Oh,
Like
that's
the
a Katie Landis
yeah,
thing you guys have seen where I normally film. That's in her room, in her little book nook.
right. So he
Actually,
likes to have a collection.
her entire room is books.
Yeah, the room I'm in, and this isn't even all of our books, but because we have some in our bedroom, but it's like our office space. So we put our books in here, but we have a big bookshelf with a bunch of our books, and then we have a little like wire shelf thing that has a bunch of other books, and then a smaller shelf that has all of our trade paper comic books. Then we have long boxes of single issue comic books. And then we have another bookshelf that you can kind of see back there.
Mm-hmm.
That is our books from college that they didn't want to take back. And we're like, well, we paid for these. So if you need, let's see, an auditing textbook from about 10 years ago, or something like that, hit me up.
Ooh, we may have to get you in on some scrapbooking projects where you use your old books to make a scrapbook.
Ooh, that could be fun. I don't know that I'd pick auditing and assurance services as my scrapbook book of choice, but maybe. Let's see.
Oh,
See, we're just like talking and we're answering a whole bunch of these questions before I can even ask them.
so now you have to just mark them all off, right?
Right. Okay. Are you a bookmark or a random piece of paper person if you have a physical?
Oh, I am a bookmark.
Mm,
I am a bookmark. In a pinch, I will put a random piece of paper in, but as soon as I'm wherever the bookmarks are, it
uh-huh.
gets a bookmark.
See, I have some bookmarks and I will use them. I have bookmarks from like a long time ago that just kind of live in certain books. Like I usually reread at least one Harry Potter book each year in July around my birthday. And so there are some uh, old bookmarks that just kind of live in those books. But I am a slip of paper person from way back because whenever I was younger, and I would go to the library and get a lot of my books. And so, they print out that big thing that tells you what books you checked out and when they're due.
Right.
That was my bookmark. Because usually I would start reading that book on my way home from the library and I didn't have a bookmark handy. And so then that would just be my bookmark for the week or for the couple weeks until I got a new one.
Did we ever get you your Hagrid bookmark?
Mhm.
Good.
You did.
Poor Keisha.
Ugh.
Katie designs beautiful bookmarks for our Love You More business, and we had done a Hagrid bookmark, and somehow we had not gotten one in Keisha's sleeves when she got them ordered, except we did manage to get one in her grandma's pig sleeve.
Yeah. So, since we live close and we see each other on a semi-regular basis, I just tell them what book sleeves I want and I pay for them rather than have them shipped to my house that's 10 minutes away. And so
we
they don't go through
always think to put one in.
right. So they don't go through the normal ordering process. But my grandma's, because they did special pig book sleeves, and I was like, well, I'm gonna get me and my grandma matching pigs book sleeves because my grandma collects pigs, loves pigs. And so they packaged it up all nicely like they would one that they were shipping and put the bookmark in there. And I gave it to my grandma. My grandma has no idea who Hagrid is. Has never read a Harry Potter book, has not seen a Harry Potter movie, but she thought that it was pretty because it was pink. And
Just like the pigs.
yeah. And so she's like, oh, yeah, I really, really like this bookmark that they gave me because I asked her if she'd gotten one because, of course, I want one. And she's like, oh, yeah, I just love it. I think it's great. I'm like, well, I can't ask my grandma to give me that bookmark now.
And of course, by the time Keisha said anything, we were out of them.
Right.
And we scrounged around and I said, oh, Keisha, I could give you one, but it has a big stain on the back. But she took that and used it for a while.
Right. But then I got a new one. So everything's fine. Well, and I figured if Hagrid had a bookmark, it'd probably have a stain on it.
And it was just like a drink spill or something like that. But I was like, this is the only one. I don't even have one. So
yeah. It was fine.
Sad thing.
It was fine. Well, as you just learned, I used old pieces of printed out paper from the library as bookmarks. So that was a step up in the world.
I have, Katie has always given me like extra bookmarks if she gets something that's a duplicate from the mini book boxes and things that she's gotten over the years. Mm-hmm. And sometimes she will order in something for me and it will end up having a pretty bookmark in it and I will keep that. I do keep, if I get cards and things and they're small, I keep those and use them as bookmarks. So if you call
Okay.
that a random piece of paper, then I do use random paper. But they're sentimental things.
Hmm. Oh no, in a pinch, I might just even like tear off a corner of a piece of notebook paper. Like, I'm a mess, guys. I have nice things, but even whenever I have nice bookmarks, I'm like, well, but what if I lost this? I get really precious about random things. Just use it. Just use it. The next question is, can you stop reading anytime you want to, or do you have to like get to the end of a chapter, get to the end of a section?
Oh,
What kind of person are you?
I like to get to the end of a section
Hmm.
or the end of a chapter. Typically, the end of a chapter is not a good thing for me because they always end on something that propels you to start the next chapter. So, most often, if I'm choosing, I'm probably stopping at the end of a section.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
if I fall asleep and, wake up and the Kindle's still in the hand, I don't go back in then and read. I just put it down. So I will have to go back a little and figure out what in the world I was reading.
Right. I say I fall asleep while reading all the time, so that's kind of the same with me. But I'm definitely, if I am intentionally stopping reading, or even like listening to something on Audible, I get to the end of a chapter. Like to the point where whenever I was younger, I would take whatever I was using as a bookmark and I would put it at the end of the chapter so I'd know how many pages I had left.
Yes, you have to know that,
Yeah.
right?
So I'm definitely an end of the chapter person.
I think for me, it kind of meant it depends on whether the chapters are big
Mm-hmm.
too, because some of the books that I read, some books you read, there's a new chapter every 10 pages. And some
Mm-hmm.
books you read, you have to read 50 or 75 pages before you get to the next chapter.
Right.
And I think that sometimes determines how I read.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. If it's something that's going to take a long time for me to finish a chapter, I might get to the end of a section. Okay. Are you the kind of person who can read when there's noise happening? Like if there's a TV on or a radio or something like that, can you still read?
Absolutely.
Oh
I
my
grew up in an elementary school that used the pod system.
God. Hmm.
So you have, 6 classes going on at the same time. I can work through anything. It did not bother me to move to middle school or it was junior high at that point and have people moving in the hall and other things going on in the room. Never fazed me. Um, I can focus anywhere, anytime.
I am so jealous because I can't. If and I used to. Whenever I was younger, I could kind of drown things out. But I can't have a radio on because I know some people like to listen to music, like have atmospheric music and things whenever they read. I can't do that. I can't have a TV on. Um, I have a hard time if other people are like talking next to me whenever I'm reading. I just have to have quiet. And I really wish I could. And sometimes, like, if I'm like, say I'm in a coffee shop or something and there's things going on, I can sometimes tune people out and read, but I have a really hard time. And my husband is like you. Like he can be reading and I can have like an entire conversation and he won't even hear that I was talking to him. He'll get so absorbed. Or I'll be like, "Oh, should I stop watching this TV show because you're trying to read?" And he's like, "No, it's okay. I can do it." I'm like, "I don't know how you can. There's too many conversations happening at one time."
I actually will read and watch something at the same time and track both.
Really?
I'm a multitasker for sure.
That's amazing. I would never be able to do that. I would like even if sometimes even when I'm stitching, if I'm watching a TV show, I have to, if it's something that's really intense and I need to pay attention to what's happening, I have to stop doing what I'm doing and like just focus on one thing. My brain just doesn't hold two things at one time, I guess.
I am amazed because I stitch most often while I'm watching TV. I am amazed sometimes when we go back and rewatch a movie and I'm like, oh, I don't remember that happening. Yeah, I was probably really intently stitching through that section.
Or counting.
Yes.
Yeah, that same thing. Okay. Let's see. I'm looking for ones that we haven't already, because like the next one is, do you read one book at a time or several at once? And well, you've already answered.
And probably, I mean, like most recently, I've been a one at a time just because I haven't been reading. But yeah, we already discussed what I like. And now I want to go find a good audio book. And I'm thinking about a series that I've read. It's not really a series, it's just the same author, but I'd have to figure out like who it is and see if there's another one of her books that I have not read yet.
Well, if anyone watching this has some good recommendations of audiobooks, I like just about everything. Leave me one in the comments, because I'm almost done with the one that I'm listening to right now. But I tend to like thrillers quite a bit, but I also like fantasy and mystery, and I mean, I'll read just about anything. I like sci-fi. I like a good biography.
This author that I've read is Paula Braxton. And I've been reading, the ones that I've listened to are books about a witch. And they're just not typical. And they're out, I love whoever it is who reads for her. But they're Welsh most of the time.
Oh.
And so I love a good accent when I'm listening to an audiobook. So there are books on here, yes, that I could check one out and listen to another one of those books. They're just interesting because they're kind of period pieces and
fun.
And why women would be called a witch, you know, what happened, why they would be called. So
I didn't even ask. This is a good question that I should have asked you at the beginning. What genre do you usually lean toward whenever you're picking a book to read?
That really depends. Because I like a lot of classic books, and I read a lot of YA just because I worked at a middle school and I read all of those Truman books, and you can go a little beyond that and get the young adult books really appealed to me just because I like the genres that they are. I like a good cozy mystery. That's probably my favorite.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely.
I need to get into some cozy mysteries. They sound like something that I would enjoy.
Well, I've had some really fun series that I like, and you know, things that I was watching to see when they came out. The culinary mysteries were fun when I read a few of those. I've read cross-stitch mysteries. I've read I've read all sorts of things. I've read a lot of things that the Hallmark Channel has turned into series.
Oh, really?
So, and I don't like scary books. I don't like gory books. I don't want things to freak me out when I'm trying to go to sleep.
See, I do not like scary movies, but I do like scary books. I don't like gory books, but I do like really tense, in scary books because I can imagine them as scary as I want to imagine them. And a book is not going to jump scare me.
Yes.
So that's how I get like kind of my scary content is through books. So I like that. I think about the only thing that I don't really like to read is I have a hard time reading battles. Like, I really like the Lord of the Rings books just for like world building and the adventure and just the epicness of it. And like my favorite book is The Hobbit. But when you get to like the Battle of the Five Armies and it's just a whole bunch of this person did this and this person did this and this person did this, I start to kind of gloss over a little bit. And I'm like, all right,
especially since a lot of times their names are so similar.
Right.
Or the names of the places are so similar.
Mm-hmm. So that's just kind of me. I don't love reading battles. So.
Okay, and my favorite book is Jane Eyre.
Yes.
So I just love that.
Mm-hmm.
And it has so many different aspects of it. You know, it starts out horrifically with she's so bullied and tortured as a child and everything that she has to go through and overcome. I just love the book.
Right. Ooh, I'm trying to make a decision. Do you want to help me make a decision, Laura?
Sure.
I'm going to take out some stitches real quick. So, and I didn't bring the other color in here with me, but I can kind of show you something approximate because I have it here. So around this entire piece, there's a border just of straight lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2. So it's 2 stitches thick. And I'm doing it mostly in, this color here.
Right.
And this isn't the same thing, but it's kind of a pinkish. I'm wondering if I should do the second line of this border that goes all the way around in my like secondary color.
Ooh.
Just to add that in a little bit.
That could look really pretty.
Mm-hmm. I think I might do that.
And it gives a little more finished look.
Right. Okay, I'm doing it.
We're doing it.
We're making decisions on the fly. Well, I think those are all the questions I have about books. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about books?
Ooh, so I was thinking, we talked a little about the Austen books. Mm-hmm. And Katie and I doing the book club, and that started because she was several hours away from me in Columbus, and we talked every day. Mm-hmm. But we just were kind of missing each other, and we had both talked about the idea that we would like to read the Austen books. And so we set that up. And then Katie told me, oh, Mom, I have the books on audio. And so she shared the files with me. And I would get up early, like you do, to have your stitch time. Mm-hmm. I would get up early and make myself a cup of tea. And at that point, I had to listen to the books on my laptop. So I would get it out, get it set up, and put on my earbuds and sit and listen to Jane Austen on audiobook while I had my tea and did cross stitching.
Oh, that's nice.
And it was just a whole experience.
Right.
Listening to those books is really good. I've read most of them, like actually read them, but it was lovely to sit and have the audiobook and just have some wake up time and a little bit of quiet me time with the cross stitch. And I will always remember that that's how I read Austen the first time.
Right.
Do you associate books with memories?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think some of the like the biggest book memories would probably be the Harry Potter books. How I read those as they were coming out. I was the same age as Harry was in the books when they were coming out. And so, like, just the frenzy. I mean, people, and I never did this myself, but like, people would line up at bookstores at midnight to get the books and
Yes.
all that kind of thing. And then, like, kind of the same thing whenever the movies came out. So, to be part of that, like, such a phenomenon as it was happening, was kind of cool. And to be in the age range, that was the target for those books too, was kind of cool. And my birthday is Harry Potter's birthday. So that was just kind of fun. So I definitely have just like fond memories of that. Um, then I have books that always remind me of certain people. Like I told you, anytime I read anything that's Jane Austen, I think of my friend Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Jane Austen is one of her favorites. And one of her favorite books of like book series of all time, so it makes me think of her, is the Anne of Green Gables series. So I always think of her if I read or like do anything related to Anne of Green Gables. Like, we want to go to Prince Edward Island eventually one day on a vacation, just to, like, be part of that. Anytime I read Tom Sawyer, which I do every once in a while, because Missouri,
Yes.
I think about the time when I was younger and I went with my grandparents and one of my brothers to Hannibal, which is where Mark Twain was from. And he drew a lot of inspiration. Well, I mean, a lot of the places in Tom Sawyer are actually places in Hannibal, including caves that we went to. And I went as an adult with my husband. We went to Hannibal and went back to those caves and went to all of the Mark Twain historic sites in Hannibal. So there's just a lot of different things, with certain books that I think of whenever I revisit them. Are you a person who rereads books?
Some books. Like I've read Jane Eyre over and over and over. And I have been for the last few years thinking I really would like to reread all of the Louisa May Alcott books, the Little Women series.
Right.
And I just there are books that I like to go back to. But I have a good funny story for you.
Mm-hmm.
When both of the kids were younger, we went to the movies all together as a family. And, we had checked out what this movie was going to be. It sounded like it would be fun. And we got there, we sat down, the movie started, and I kind of went, huh. And it went a little bit further, and I went, huh. And not very far, probably no more than 10 or 15 minutes into it, I leaned over to Katie and said, I think I read this book. And it was Neil Gaiman's Stardust.
Oh.
Which, if you have not seen that movie, it is fabulous. The book is so fun. And Neil Gaiman is somebody that I would read almost anything that he wrote. He's so fun. And if you listen to his books on audiobook, most often it is him who is reading them.
And he has a wonderful voice for the type of content he writes.
And he does voices. So what's fun for me is that I feel like that's how he hears it in his head when he's been writing it. So, but yes, I mean, that whole thing, if you haven't seen Stardust, you need to see it. It's just so fun.
Speaking of him, one of my favorite series of graphic novels is The Sandman, which is his creation, and they're doing a Netflix adaptation series on those books, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to watch that. They keep saying, you know, who different casting choices are, and I'm just excited. He's an author that I would, if you told me that a book was by him, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm reading that.
And he's odd and quirky, and nothing is ever what it seems. How are you about watching movies after you've read a book?
Okay, well, I'm definitely a read the book before I watch the movie person, unless I get tricked and I didn't know that it was a book first. Sometimes that happens. I'm usually okay. There are some things like, well, I'll just use the Harry Potter movies as an example. Like, they don't follow the books exactly, but I think they get like the essence of the book. And so I find them enjoyable. I find the Lord of the Rings movies enjoyable. I do not find the Hobbit movies enjoyable. And that might be because I know the source material too well. Like, I was really excited for the first movie of The Hobbit to come out because I had been waiting. Whenever they did the Lord of the Rings, I was like, they've got to do The Hobbit. And it was a very long time. Like, I knew whenever they changed a couple words in a line that somebody said. Like, that's how many times I've read The Hobbit. So I was maybe a little bit too deep into it anyway. But then they added a lot of things into it, and I think kind of deviated from the spirit of the book a little bit, and that made me upset. So I do not really like the Hobbit movies. There is only one movie that I refuse to watch that is based on a book. And it is a beloved book from my childhood. Not as beloved as The Hobbit, but beloved. And that is Ella Enchanted. Because someone told me that the movie, well, I've just referenced her a lot. She's my very first bookish friend, my friend Chelsea. And I read Ella Enchanted when we were in 4th or 5th grade. It's a wonderful book if you haven't read it. It's great. And we loved that book. We read it so many times. We talked about it. She saw the movie and she told me, never watch that movie. And so I have never watched that movie. Because she said it's so different and that it would make me very upset.
So my problem movie is always Little Women.
Oh, really?
And I have come to accept the fact that they're never going to get the entire book in a movie, because it would have to be, they would have to break it up, and there's just so much that happens that you can never get it, and they always change different things in them, and it used to really, really bother me. And then I read those keywords that are on every movie that has been made because there was a book, and those are the words based on. And I think once I could make my brain accept the idea that seriously, it's just based on, they read the book and they decided this could be a fun movie, then I'm mostly okay with it. And I even enjoy those movies now. What I don't enjoy is Confessions of a Shopaholic. That's a whole series. I like British literature. I I like British comedy, British humor, I guess, in the books. But Shopaholic was a fabulous series. And oh my gosh, she was so fun and quirky. They even chose a British actress to play the lead character.
Mm-hmm.
It's set in the United States and she's an American. So she has no accent through the whole thing. They changed the color of the scarf, which is a huge thing in the book. Why did you need to change the color of the scarf? I mean, that's a silly thing. And that irritated me to death. And then they combined several of the books so that you couldn't even go on from there and have any more movies past it.
Mm.
I get irritated about things like that. There's another book series that I read that I felt like they made poor casting choices.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it didn't work for me. And again, because they made poor casting choices, then they didn't make any more movies because the movie didn't get good reviews because none of us thought that the casting choices were good.
Right.
So that affects me with books. Obviously, I get a little heated about that, huh?
I feel like people who are readers are very passionate, especially if it's, because there are things like, okay, Alice in Wonderland is a book. I'm not like, Disney's Alice in Wonderland is okay. Of course, I watched that one first. So, the book is just kind of something afterwards. But, I'm not passionate, the way other people may be passionate about Alice in Wonderland. But I'm passionate about The Hobbit. And I'm passionate in my never watching Ella Enchanted.
I really enjoyed Ella Enchanted, but I've never read the book.
See?
So in fact, one of my very favorite scenes from that is where she sings the Queen song.
Mm.
Can anybody find me somebody to love? That's, if you don't watch anything else in the movie, you should just watch that scene because the whole song just becomes this huge epic thing and it is so fun. But I can see where if that's a book that you read, then you might not want to watch the whole movie.
Yeah. It's
Katie
just,
was Katie was nearly impossible to take to the Harry Potter movies.
Oh, I'm sure.
The first few were not enjoyable at all.
Oh man. No, I definitely was like, those weren't all of the trials that they had to go through.
Mm-hmm. And if you come to the Harry Potter retreats, let me tell you that Katie Landis has reread those books again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And she is still rereading those books to make sure that we have a lot of book content in our retreat and the things that you get. And, there are some movie references that are just so endearing. And it's like, well, of course they did that because that just made it perfect.
Right.
But
don't talk to me about the omission of the Death Day party in Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, no, I was also that insufferable kid. I'm better with it now.
Yeah, she had a really hard time watching. Well, okay, let's just be real honest. We know that those actors were brand new actors, a lot of them. And the first movie especially is more than a little awkward in places. But then the characters grew. They obviously, we all invested in them as the character. And I think it got better as it went along.
Right.
And we marathon them. Katie doesn't typically marathon them, but Jeff and I will. So, I don't know that I have anything else to tell you. I'm in a good spot here if you're in a good spot.
Oh yeah, I'm just working away on borders, so we can stop.
I did. Okay, and we're going to have a cat fight here too. So,
all right. So it's probably a good time to
something fun. Ready?
Yeah, I would love to see it. Oh wow, fun!
So this is the corner.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, I'm going to put this in just so that I keep track of where I am. And then the little person is right there. And I'm like, I can do that.
I have nothing fun.
So my next little bit will be to backstitch the fish and the fishing pot, the fishing pole.
Nice. I have nothing fun.
Woohoo! I bet you got in way more stitches than I did, and
well,
I didn't count.
I'm not sure how many stitches this is. I have to go back and count. I just know that it's forever and ever and ever and ever. But this is 95 across. So. And I'm really liking this on this fabric. And it's just one strand. I'm just using one strand.
I'm only using one strand as well.
All right. Well,
I was trying to quickly get them in here, but it's not going to happen because I really did way more stitches than I thought.
Right. I don't know how many ones. Please hold while I count. Riveting content.
Yes. I'm over 100.
This is 30. 129.
I have 156 cross stitches and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 back stitches. So another 3, right? How many did I just tell you? 156, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I got to click. I'll just sit here and click for a while, but I can talk through that.
So I ended up with 127 stitches. Or no, hold on. It's 129 stitches. I did 129 stitches. The pattern doesn't start up in the corner at 1, 1, so I didn't go down far enough. But 100.
Oh no, are you going to be okay?
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. I just, whenever I was putting this, marking the stitches off on here, I didn't go down far enough. So.
Do you count your back stitching as like you have to make 2 legs to get 1 full stitch?
You know, I would do that whenever I was in stitching challenges, but I don't really do that so much, like with my personal stitching. I need to though, because I have some projects that are heavier in back stitch than others, just for counting purposes. But
I've been doing that because I've been counting stitches for my 25/7.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you have a lot of back stitch in that. There isn't so much back stitch in mine. I can't wait to show you guys that next week.
Oh yeah. So next week, when I show you my 25/7, if I push it this week, I will be halfway finished.
Oh, awesome. That's amazing, because I know you were ready to be done with that one.
I was on the struggle bus fully with it, and 25, and generally it's my first project of the day. The only day that it really typically is not is when we do a stitch with us.
Right. Same here. Same here. So
and I think it's because I reward myself with my fun stitching after I do that. After I do that piece, which is for a friend, and it's way more than I ever thought it was going to be.
Right. Well, the one that I picked for, I mean, it's just, I feel like the 25 stitches, and I'm doing 25 stitches, sometimes more. It's just like, I'm going to at least get that done every day, is kind of my thing. And it's a piece that I really enjoy that I hadn't really planned on working on this year. So I'm really having a good time with it. And I think we'll probably only be a couple weeks and I'll be doing beads. So that'll be a good way for me to do beads because I don't usually enjoy doing beads. So.
Oh, but you do so, that's funny to me because you stitch so many mill hills.
I know. Well, I get to the beads and I'm like, oh. But you put so much time into it. It's like, you need to do the beads.
You're such a conundrum.
I know it.
Oh, well, this has been fun. And I'm glad we started these on here.
Me
And
too.
the next time
so
we do a stitch with us, we'll be back to our other project. But
yeah.
Woohoo.
Yeah, good.
Hey.
And now I just want to leave this room and go sit and stitch on this some more, but probably James needs me.
But your mom's there.
If I can get him back from his nanny. I doubt it though.
Yeah, so you may get to sit down and stitch for a little while more, huh?
I may.
That's so fun. I'm so glad I started down here with the crazy little people.
Yeah, that's fun. I'm excited to get done with some of this border and get into the nice spot. But as I was telling Laura, I had planned on working on something fun, but I figured like sitting and chatting, it'd probably be better to work on the border, which is not something that I typically enjoy. So
well, and I was going to work on more border, but I also know that I want my counting to be really good and accurate. So to be able to take off a little ways and get a quirky little person in will just make me happy while I'm doing borders.
Right. So at least you can look at the promise of more fun stuff.
Yeah. And I'm trying to decide, are those like fishing lures on the top of his hat? Because, he is holding a fishing pole over here.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just a quirky little person? I don't know.
I think he's whoever you want him to be.
So much in this one. It's just going to be such a fun thing to stitch.
For sure.
Oh, and if I go up this border on the other side, I could get to the rabbit.
Ah, ooh, fun. Know how you feel about rabbits.
Yes. So. Okay.
All right. Okay, we're just gonna let you guys go because we would just keep talking to you forever.
We would, and I have all the book stuff floating around in my head now.
Right. I mean, we talked for like a half hour without any sort of prompt, and now we're like,
there's so much more that we could talk about. I don't know if you ever really told us what genre you like to read.
Oh, it really depends on the day. I'd say I mostly like suspense thriller stuff, but I also love fantasy and sci-fi. But I'll read anything unless it's a book about a whole bunch of battles.
And I think we kind of got that, but I just, I wanted to kind of confirm that that's where you were.
That's okay. You know me, guys. I'm happy with just about anything.
I read a lot of different things. Whatever Katie Landis says I should read, that's what I read.
That's a good rule to go by. She's pretty good at recommendations. All right. Well, yeah. I think that wraps us up because like I said, we would keep you forever. And hopefully you got some good stitching in and you thought about books and maybe got some good recommendations or, just like, okay, guys. Because that's usually how I look at us. But we'll see you next week with our regular floss tube video. So thanks for joining us and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.